Hey, hey.
Hello. I'm Vortex of Doom. With me is this guy, Ryan.
Yeah, you can just call me Ryan.
Ryan. Well, I mean, I'm. But yeah, this should be a really good race. The runners are about a minute off each other's PBs, both with pretty recent PBs in the last month or so for both of them. So yeah, this should be a very good matchup.
Yeah, both runners really in game shape, actively running the game and improving their times. We've got a 129 and a 131. So yeah, I think just under 2 minutes separating them.
2 minutes, yeah.
And some really high level gameplay. And we're off.
These are the middle two seeds for this group N. So the closest two.
During the escapes, for anyone again not terribly familiar with the game, which is probably unlikely here watching, but just in case, the idea here in the NMG run is essentially you still have to play the entire game. That's the long and short of it. There are plenty. There are plenty of exploits that we make use of, but there are no sequence breaking or game breaking glitches or exploits available. So we still do all of the dungeons, we still fight all of the bosses, and you still collect all of the items that are mandatory for reaching and defeating Ganon. And this first chunk, the escape segment, is just getting into and then getting out of the castle. For most runners, this is sort of just 6 minutes of spacing out. Runners see this segment a lot because there are bound to be lots and lots of resets. I anticipate this will be right at or under 6 minutes for runners of this skill level. You see really high level runners will do this in a little bit under 6 minutes, sometimes low 550s or even high 540s. But about right at 6 minutes is generally what people aim for.
Yeah, as far as how fast you need to go to get a good time in escape, it really doesn't matter. You can reach basically any level you want at this game with anywhere under 610 reasonably. Any more than 610, you're probably doing things wrong that will cost you more time other places.
Yeah.
Than escape. But yeah, it's a pretty straightforward section of the game. Pretty railroady. Tells you where to go.
Looks like where I'm gonna say Wera. I have no idea if that's good or not, but it's a mouthful to say the whole name. Wera having a little bit of trouble with the second key guard, so that costs a little bit of time. It looks like Vertz is just a little bit out ahead. Yeah, one thing that you see runners get into a bad habit of is if they are very reset happy, then the escape segment ends up being really good, but the rest of the game is not so much because you just end up practicing escape over and over and over again. So if you're running 555 escapes, that's fantastic. But then if you don't beat Eastern Palace until, I don't know, 11:45, then you're probably not going to put up a great time. So it's good to practice the entirety of the game. But like Vortex said, if you are having slow times in escape, usually that's a good indicator of skill sets that need to be honed for the entirety of the game. But it is what it is. I noticed both runners going for the one pot strat when killing the ball and chain guard and collecting Zelda from her prison cell. I'm a big proponent of the one pot strat. There's three things you see people go with. You can either kill ball and chain with two pots. You throw a pot at him, You go back and you get another pot, and you throw another pot at him, and that kills him. You can do the 8 slash strat, which is no pot throwing whatsoever. You just hit him with your sword 8 times. But the timing on that can be pretty difficult. So 8 slash sometimes turns into 11 or 12 slash. And if it goes really badly, then it turns into a dead link. The 1 pot is sort of a middle ground between those. You throw 1 pot and then you hit him 4 times with your sword.
Yeah.
Doesn't really lose that much time over 8 slash.
Right. That's what I was going to say. The middle ground is somewhat misleading because the 2 pot strat, if you do it optimally, you grab the right pot from the right so the ball and chain guard comes closer to you, and you throw it as close as you can to him and to the cell, then you go back, and even if you're doing all that right, it still costs you, I want to say between 1 and 2 seconds over 8 slash, but the single pot 4 slash method only costs, I want to say, like 40 frames. And if you have any slop on the 8 slash, you're probably losing time anyway.
Yeah. And I see even really high level runners. I mean, 125 skill level runners will have not trouble per se with the 8 slash method, but will have semi routine 9 or 10 slash ball and chains.
Definitely.
Both runners collecting the key there from the key rat, no problem. Neither one of them moving to Seattle, which is nice. Getting close to the end of escape here, just making their way through the sewers, making their way downtown, walking fast.
Both runners successfully avoiding the first of 2 possible text boxes in the room before the sank.
So about 2 seconds difference between the racers there at the end of the escape segment. It looks like we're split at about 6:01 and vertz at about 6:03. So depending on lag that viewers may be seeing, we'll try and keep you updated on the difference that we're seeing between them. Wera smartly going for Sanctuary Heart, and as does vertz. That's an extra heart that is not required. You don't have to get that heart if you don't want to. Theoretically, you can beat the entire game with only 3 hearts, which is what people do in a category called low percent, which requires heart deletion techniques. We don't do that in this category, but the extra heart there is very handy. I commentated a couple of days ago the first race of the tournament with Roar, who is a very high level runner, often does not get the Sanctuary Heart when he's going for new personal best times. Did opt to get the Sanctuary Heart in his race, and it came in clutch a couple of times. He would have died had he not had it. That's exactly why people get it. vertz taken kind of an unusual path through that last screen, but managed to avoid any damage, and that's the more important thing.
Yeah, the screens on the way to Eastern are, a lot like Escape in that they're pretty routine, but there's a lot of RNG reading that goes into them, and you're never going to lose a ton of time. Not probably more than 5 seconds in absolute worst case scenarios, unless you died or something. But it's so easy to just just get your time chipped away by these screens. Both runners navigated through them pretty smoothly. Yeah,
it's a good place to practice good movement. And good movement is one of those things that's really, really critical to having a good time in this game. You can know all of the strats and be able to execute all of the strats, and know all of these things in theory. But if you're not practicing good movement, then you're never really going to reach the time that you want. So overworld movement is something really, really important that a lot of people overlook. That's really critical to getting better at the game. I say, having terrible overworld movement myself.
Well, I mean, you can know that overworld movement is what's costing you all your time. vertz making a slightly unorthodox extra heart pickup there.
Yeah, I noticed that. vertz bypassed a heart drop in the Stalfos room, and I was curious, and I wondered if he was just going to go without, but instead opted to get the heart in that pot, which
and
I often
maybe
forget exists.
Yeah, I remember it exists from my early attempts where I, basically needed every halfway convenient heart pickup. But it could be, as we see, where taking a couple extra shots to, and yeah, that's to get the big key. We do a little damage boost through the, ideally the popos, but the anti-fairies themselves can also provide a damage boost at the cost of an extra half a heart. But getting through those can take a couple extra hearts, and in a race situation where you can't just reset if you die there, or, I mean, you could, but it would be costing you 9 minutes instead of... You want to make sure that you're not going to die there. So that could have been the reason for the extra heart pickup.
Yeah, the big key damage boost there is one of the first really big skips, glitches that you have to learn when you're learning this run, and can be a big sticking point for a lot of people. I know it took me a really long time to get comfortable with it, and it looks like both runners had just a little bit of trouble. Fortunately, no deaths. That's the really important thing, is you just don't want to take a death there. But I noticed Vertz lost enough hearts that he opted to take a safety heart near the bottom of that room, which really slowed him down. Wera now having a little bit of trouble with the Igors in this room. This is a very difficult thing to do quickly. It's possible to kill both of these Igors in one go, but if things go sideways, it loses you a lot of time, sort of by necessity, because the Igors, just go to sleep, and you have to wait them out. So if you get it right the first time, it's great. If you don't, then it's a pain in the neck.
Yeah, and Vertz had a much easier time in that room, but opted to pick up the 20 rupees and an extra 4 arrows. Despite getting an arrow drop from the first Igor, would have had plenty, but probably again a case of you can't reset if things go bad. Looking forward to the boss of the next dungeon, Lamola's, which
no one should ever be looking forward to the next boss.
Well, yes.
It's like, according to the splits that we have in front of us, less than 2 seconds separating the runners right now. So I'm curious, at this skill level, I don't expect either one of these runners to opt to get these Saha rupees here. So I'll see. I'm not personally familiar with either one of these runners. I don't watch them. So Wera, no, and Vertz, no. Okay. So there is an optional strat there where you can pick up some rupees in the back of that hut there, and then not need to get the tree rupee poles later on. But once you reach a certain skill level, nobody really goes with that, because it is about, I'd say, 3 seconds slower than doing the actual tree rupees. Looks like both runners had to take at least a couple of shots at getting spin speed there, which loses a little bit of time, but that is one of the spin speeds that is worth doing more than once if you fail it, because it saves a lot of time over just walking or dashing, for that matter.
Yeah, I have to admit that I am very guilty of trying every spin speed, within reason at least, up to 2 or 3 times, just on principle. As we saw Vertz do there.
For the unholy spin speed there on the way to the library, which is if you're gonna, like Vortex was just saying, trying every spin speed. If you're gonna skip a spin speed, that's the one that people skip. Wera got it first try, which was great. Vertz had to take a couple shots at arming the spin speed, so that cost him a little bit of time. And that is actually why people skip it, because if you don't get that specific spin speed on the very first try, it's a fairly significant time loss. And if you do get it first try, it's not really that significant a time save. So even really high level runners sometimes will just not bother.
Whereas skillfully avoiding the splashy dash on the way down, Vertz as well. Oh,
Vertz having a bonk there, but smartly repositioning to avoid getting shot in the face.
The first unforced bonk of the run.
There's always at least one.
I know.
I wonder if anybody has ever completed an entire run without bonking on accident.
An extra time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd wager that it has happened. Actually, I'd wager that it has happened at a fairly low level, because one thing you'll see from a lot of runners early on in their NMG careers is they will cancel dashes very early.
That's a really good point, actually.
To avoid the bonks rather than trying to maximize and get everything possible out of it.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, because one of the things you start working on as you get better at the game is more optimized dash cancels so that you maximize the distance dashed. But inevitably that results in more bonks. So early dash cancels at a lower skill level will usually result in fewer accidental bonks, because you're not going to be cutting it nearly as close.
Yeah.
Where having a tiny bit of trouble with cannonballs.
Yeah, both runners got, I think, pretty much the same RNG in that room. Wera was trying to squeeze it out. I think if you get a first frame dash on that RNG, you can squeeze through the cannonballs. But Vertz just saw that the RNG was not favorable and probably saved 15, 20 frames by avoiding. Mm-hmm. And of the two runners, the one who I thought might pick up the rupees in pre-glove room was not Vertz.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Vertz, who is already rich, went ahead and picked up a rupee there, a blue rupee, which is worth 5 rupees. It's a single rupee, but it's worth 5, whatever. 5 monies. Didn't really need it, so I'm going to guess that's probably a muscle memory thing. Probably just does it every single time.
Yeah. That argument can be made for, picking up some extra rupees for, safety if you fail the tree pulls, you fail the tier 3 or whatever. But I think if you're worried about that, I really think that you're just best off just getting Saha rupees, which, like you said, are like probably a 3-second time loss if you do everything right.
Or God forbid you take damage after paying off Kiki once, but before you actually get to the pod entrance. Yeah. Always nice to have 10 extra just in case there. Which again, for reference, in case anyone isn't terribly familiar, the rupees are required later in the run, probably 20 minutes from now ish. The runners will need 110 rupees to pay off a monkey extortionist who is the only person able to open an entrance to a dungeon. And the route is designed such that runners end up with pretty much right at exactly 110 rupees. But it requires good gameplay because there's a manipulation on rupees pulled out of a tree. And a tiny bit of luck, because you got to get, I think, at least one drop on your way. But that's almost always a given.
And we see one of the first great equalizers in the NMG run doing what it does. Wera was probably in the Landmo fight, 10 seconds earlier or so. And Vertz is actually going to be the first one out. Landmos are a very difficult boss to do fast. You're probably not going to die very much to them at any level, but the difference between doing them fast and slow is enormous. And far from
Landmo is without question my least favorite fight in the entire game.
Yeah, there are some runners who really love just grinding that Landmo fight. I have never been one of them. It's a fun fight for sure when it goes well, but I wasted my time practicing other less important boss fights.
Yeah. That being said, here on this overworld, Vert's a little bit of bad luck in the setup to fake flippers. Both pickles got in his way, took a couple hearts of damage, and also cost him a little bit of time. So Wera covered a little bit of ground there, although I spoke maybe a tiny bit too soon. Shortly after fake flippers was executed, Wera had kind of a bad swim. So not as much time saved as maybe there would have been otherwise, but did catch up a little bit to Vertz because of that. So both of them in the cave right now with the old man.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see some number of lead changes in the early game. The light world dungeons are constant roller coasters at basically any level. Moldorm is another early gate. If that fight goes off the rails, actually, all of Hera is just that.
Wera now back in the lead because Vertz opted to go kiss the old man in his cave to get healing because he had lost, I think, either three or four hearts just on his way to Death Mountain. So now just a little bit behind due to that, but does have full health. So that's nice going into Hera.
Yeah, and in a race setting, I think that's a pretty justifiable decision. There aren't many opportunities to heal in Hera before you get to the end, and most of the stuff that's going to hurt you is on the way there. So
yeah,
going in with full health.
Hera deaths are common and rough. It's not a good death.
Yeah, far from the worst, but you're never very far from any other point in the dungeon in Hera. But first getting a second red rupee drop before even getting out of Light World, which is pretty nuts rupee drop luck, even if you're killing more enemies than you might sometimes. And now we have an auto scroller of sorts. It's a room that is pretty difficult to lose time in overall. Since it's
this is
scripted.
where, and neither runner really in danger of this happening to them, but this is really where you don't want to take a death is right after this section, because that tile room is impossible to do quickly. The only option you have is to just wait it out. Both runners getting through no problem, but if you are low on health entering Hera, it's actually not terribly uncommon to see people do what you call a death warp, which is just take an intentional death early on in the dungeon, because it's quite a bit faster than accidentally dying, right after the tile room, which is a big pain in the neck.
And after grabbing the big key is a very good time to do a death warp, because it means you don't have to spend the extra menu to mirror. You can just go from lamp to bombs in the attic.
All right, Wera coming up on the first bomb jump. We talked about earlier about glitches and exploits being available in this category. Bomb jumps are one of them. We skip quite a bit of this part of the dungeon by just knocking ourselves over that pit by dropping a bomb, waiting for the bomb to explode, and taking some intentional damage via that. It looks like Wera, I wasn't watching, but it looks like Wera fell off of this floor above us.
Skip.
I'm going to guess bounced off that bumper. However,
which is another one of those early lead changes.
Now back in the lead, but Moldorm can be finicky, so hopefully I didn't just curse them. Moldorm is a difficult boss because all it takes to kill Moldorm is 6 sword slashes. Doesn't matter if it's a poke, doesn't matter if it's a spin, or a regular slash, doesn't matter. You just have to hit Moldorm 6 times.
And a middle hole.
Finishing it out. Wera, however, having the worst thing happen that can happen, which is getting knocked down that middle pit.
Around the outside of the pit, you'll fall 1 floor, but in that middle pit, you fall a full 2 floors, which is, it's obviously very punishing time-wise.
Yep. And the really hard thing is that the fight starts over. So you can hit Moldorm 5 times and be on the very last hit of the fight. But if you fall, you got 6 more. And it can be very punishing. So Wertz now with a very big lead, thanks to no real trouble in the Moldorm fight. Wera just now finishing it off. Still plenty of game left and plenty of things that can go right or wrong for either runner. So far from over, but this is a big advantage for Vertz, definitely.
And we see a pretty easy setup for the tree rupees, killing that bush crab after picking up the first tier 2. And Wera is out of sword beams for the trip to Ega Tower and the first few rooms, which that can be
that may be a problem.
Not in any risk of losing tree rupees yet, but so for anyone who doesn't know how the tree rupees work, there are 3 tiers of trees, as we see both runners lose their arrow drops from the miscellaneous pack. Just F's in chat for the arrows. But there are 3 different tiers of tree pulls. One is if you pull the trees after you have killed 1 to 4 enemies, or 1 to 3. The second tier, the one they got after Hera, is if you've killed 4 or more enemies and you've taken damage, which, by the time you do Hera, you will have taken damage. Mm-hmm. Since there are a couple places where it's intended in the speedrun. And then the tier 3, which Vertz just got, is if you've killed 4 or more without taking any damage since your last tree pull. So there are a few different routes through the Lost Woods that get you those 4 enemies killed after the first tree pull.
So the idea, the way the run is routed, is the first tree will get you blue rupees, the second tree will get you red rupees. So you maximize the amount of rupees pulled from the trees, and depending on how many drops you've gotten before that point, you may not need to pick all of them up, but it essentially ensures that you will have at least the 110 rupees that you need. There are also 6 free rupees inside of Aga's Tower, the dungeon that they're in right now. I actually wondered if this might happen. Wera stopped to pick up the mushroom in the Lost Woods, which is the first safety anybody's taken. Vertz did not get the mushroom, but the mushroom is... you can either keep it as a mushroom, leave it alone by itself, and do a strat known as fake powder, which is again, it's a safety. It allows you to heal yourself under certain circumstances, or you can take a little bit of time to visit a witch who will trade your mushroom for real powder, and the powder will let you turn anti-fairies as well as bunny beams into fairies, which will fully restore your health. Well, not fully, but restore several hearts of health. So Wera has that just in case. And we'll see whether Wera opts to turn it into powder or leave it as the mushroom and use fake powder if needed.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing from Wera is didn't do any sort of attempt at a backup strat for the fairy skip, because if you dash through an enemy, they won't drop anything. They won't drop from their pack, which runners often use to preserve that fairy drop that Wera got in that room for Turtle Rock much later to make use of a couple damage boost strats, or just, you know, surviving the absurd damage that is done when you're on green mail in that dungeon. There are a couple common backups.
I also noticed Vertz went through a couple of rooms where you would ordinarily use arrows without arrows because his arrow count was a little bit low, which was smart. Now he's up to 10 arrows, which is plenty for the next section. But was conserving arrows, cost a little bit of time, but made it so he didn't need to worry about getting a lucky arrow pickup later.
And
we're a little bit low on health. We'll need to keep an eye on that, but usually not a problem. Again, I hope I'm not cursing anybody. Just needs to make it through this next room, and then Aghanim usually does not result in a lot of damage taken unless you are playing it poorly or very, very aggressively. We'll see. Speaking of Aghanim, Vertz is into the Aga fight. The Aghanim fight is one of the few bits of really heavy RNG in the game, that RNG specifically that you don't have any control over. You have to hit 6 energy balls back at Aghanim in order to defeat him. The way Aghanim works is he warps around the room, and he does it in cycles of 4. And the first ball he shoots at you at the beginning of every cycle is guaranteed to be an energy ball. After that, there are 3 more that have a 50-50 chance of either being an energy ball or what we call blue balls. And blue balls cannot be deflected back at Aghanim. So you can get anywhere between 0 and 15 of those. 15 extraordinarily uncommon, but 0 is not a whole lot more common. Typically, runners will get between 2 and 3. I wasn't actually able to count. Vert's just finishing up the Aga fight now. I don't know how many he got. If anybody in chat was paying attention, let us know. I'm going to guess 2 or 3 because that's pretty common. But Wera now into the Aga fight themselves, and we'll see how many balls they get.
Yeah, neither runner getting great luck with the blue balls. Looks like Vertz had at least 5, I think. I'm just trying to judge by the split timer.
Yeah, what makes it a little bit difficult, again, we mentioned here as commentators, we can see the full Twitch overlay for both runners. Wow, Vertz just narrowly avoiding damage there on that overworld screen. Anyway, but Vertz also didn't split the castle tower segment, so I'm not sure how much time he lost in between castle tower and the Aga fight. They skipped the split. Anyway, now we're into the Dark World. We're going to see here coming up what we had mentioned needing these 110 rupees for. It's a ridiculous amount of money to have someone open a door for you, but whatever.
And so that first text box from Kiki the Monkey, he will take 10 rupees from you, and then he'll take 100 to open the door. If you get hit, there's some pretty cruel RNGs. Where you have to do some extensive maneuvering to avoid getting hit, but it's always possible. But if you get hit, you lose Kiki and you have to pay him another 10, which can be extremely punishing if you are right up against that 110 rupee mark.
Yep. It's no fun. So Wera now coming up on that same thing. Fortunately, plenty of rupees as well. And Wera, if you were watching their part of the stream, did what's known as the Kiki Dash, which I love. I love the Kiki Dash. You dash up near the door of the entrance to Palace of Darkness. If you cancel your dash downward shortly before engaging the next dialogue box, Kiki, who's lagging behind because isn't able to dash as quickly as you, sort of gets warped up towards Link, and it saves hardly any time at all, but it's fun to do. And it is a time save, so you might as well do it. Corpser, I'm not sure if anybody in chat knows. Please feel free to inform us. But I wasn't able to count the blue balls. A few. Neither runner had a super low count. I can tell you that much. Wera going into the early stages of Palace of Darkness here, unfortunately had some really bad RNG there. Had an enemy get in the way and attempted to kill them with beams, but didn't. I actually don't know why that happened, but the sword beams did not kill that enemy like it was supposed to. Oh, and then wasted a bomb in an attempt to avoid taking damage there. So they'll be need to be cognizant of their bomb count. Vertz,
very
Vertz
nice.
Just now successfully completing hammer jump, which is one of the more difficult skips in the game. It requires two separate pixel perfect positionings to do a bomb jump over to that big chest there, and managed to pull it off first try, which is always great, and without taking a whole lot of time setting it up. You see a lot of people use many menu buffers early on as they're first getting comfortable with that skip, but even several menu buffers is still faster than the intended way to get through that room.
Yeah, I think there is a video out there. I think Helpa has it.
Yeah,
that,
it's the 30 pause command.
30. Yeah. 30 menu buffers can still save time over not doing hammer jump.
Yep. Vert's having just a tiny bit of trouble with the mimics there, smartly picking up some extra arrows because he needed to use a couple extra to kill the mimics, but no big deal. Yeah, hammer jump is a very, very difficult trick. Beginning runners often will opt not even to bother trying. And then as you get into the middle stages of knowing the game, it's not uncommon to see people do hammer jump sort of half, where you place one bomb, but you do not throw the second bomb, because ordinarily it takes two bombs to do hammer jump. But you see folks will place just the first bomb, which will allow them to jump over and then place a second bomb after they've landed on the platform. It just makes it a little bit easier to do the setup for it. But obviously the fastest way to do it is you drop two bombs and then pray. Vert's now on to the Helmasaur fight. And doesn't look like Vertz is going to bother with the spin speed Helma strat, which is a relatively new discovery still. That essentially, because the way you kill Helmasaur is by bonking Helmasaur on the nose with the hammer a whole bunch of times in a row. And this, if you arm spin speed, obviously there's nowhere to execute it because that requires a staircase or a ladder. But if you arm spin speed, it expands the hitbox for the hammer quite a bit, and it makes it easier to get a hit with the hammer onto Helmasaur's nose. And that makes it so that you don't have to use your sword held out as sort of a defensive mechanism, and your movement is faster as a result. So it makes the Helmasaur fight a little bit quicker, but it's also kind of dangerous.
Meanwhile, Wera is entering the Helm fight, also not opting for spin speed. It is a more recently discovered tech. Ironically, because spin speed has been in the game forever. But the knowledge of how it affects the hammer hitbox wasn't quite as recent. But
well, and
both runners had very, very solid Helma fights. Took it safe because Helma is one of those fights that can go wrong fast and is a huge time loss. One of the biggest that will be in the game for quite a while.
And I also noticed Wera not opting to use the hammer at all in the last phase of the Helma fight, which is not uncommon. I see a lot of people do that because the hammer hitbox is so small. If you don't feel super comfortable with it, and you're not, because if you get too close to Helma, obviously you're just going to walk right into him and take damage as a result. So Wera opting to kill Helma with sword slashes instead, which takes longer because it takes more sword slashes than it does hammer hits. But the sword hitbox is much, much bigger. So smart strat for anyone who isn't super comfortable smacking Helma with a hammer. Both runners now in the overworld. Vert's getting a quick warp there on their way to pick up the flute. Now that we will be spending time moving in between the light world and the dark world, you'll see a lot of quick warp setups. A quick warp is anytime you are performing a warp in between light world and dark world. Ordinarily, you'll be stepping on a warp tile. Sometimes you will use the mirror. But if you step on the tile in a very, very specific spot and position, the warp animation that ensues as a result is shortened, and it saves you, I think, a full second if you get that quick warp correctly. So it's definitely tech worth learning.
I believe it's 35 frames is what I have heard. So it's definitely always worth trying for, as long as you're not like walking back and forth, because any small movement you can make to adjust to try is gonna cost less than 35 frames if you get it. Yeah. So
for comparison, Wera did not get the quick warp just now. And if you were to look back at both of their warp placements, if you don't really know the game very well, you probably wouldn't have even been able to tell that they did it any differently. Their warp placements looked very, very similar, but the quick warp positioning is very, very exact. Vert's just now not getting a quick warp in that case. So they're difficult to get unless you really, really, really know the setup for them well. There are some that are much easier than others. Some might even call them free, but those people are liars. And some are really, really hard to get, and you just sort of YOLO those. Vert's now inside of the Thieves' Town dungeon, which
notably
is kind of a hard dungeon. The dungeon itself can be a little bit difficult. There's a lot of enemies and a fair amount of RNG. The boss fight here is a boss named Blind, and if you know what you're doing, depending on your experience and skill level with the game, the boss fight is actually one of the easiest boss fights in the entire game. It's a scripted fight, so if you do the fight exactly the same every single time, the fight will go exactly the same every single time, and should only last really a few seconds, but we'll see, because it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, and if you're familiar with the original game, this is the first place the speedrun departs from the intended dungeon order, or the numbered dungeon order. This is dungeon number 4 in the dark world, but we do it second, precisely because the Titan's mitts that are in the dungeon treasure are necessary to get the tempered sword, which does lots of damage, as much damage as we need, and we want to get that as fast as possible.
I like that. So, as much damage as we need. and exactly as much damage as we need.
Yes.
That is the speedrunning way, is get everything you need and nothing more. Wera, that was dope. Wera got the God Pixel on the Thieves' Town Hellway there. Whereas Vertz, who went through the Hellway a little while ago, had quite a bit of trouble getting through the Hellway. had to waste a fair amount of time avoiding enemies. Wera landed on the exact right pixel there that they were able to just dash straight up and through the entire thing without needing to worry about any enemies. So that certainly saved a little bit of time. Still some ground to make up, but always fun when you manage to land on the God pixel.
Yeah, and a fun strat for that, if you want to try it, dash out of that door without pressing left or right at all, or up or down or any direction, because you're in a door and will move left regardless. And you will stay on the game's 4x4 grid because you move at 4 pixels per second, making it a lot easier to hit that God pixel. There's a lot of times
beginning the blind fight. Blind is 3 phases and 3 hits with your sword per phase. And first 2 phases of the script, no problem. Now on to the last one. The last phase can be a little bit tricky. No problem though for vertz. So there's the blind fight, over and done with. Real nice and easy. No damage taken whatsoever.
Yeah, and a nice arrow count coming out of Thieves. 18 arrows.
Oh, yeah, very nice.
Definitely nice.
Oh, heck, that's Stalfos. Okay, and Wera now on to the blind fight as well. Phase 1 down. No problem with number 2 either. Ooh, okay. Phase 3 tiny bit scary, but managed to recover without any real trouble, and got out of the fight no problem. Oh no!
Since it's something that we can see and you guys can't, vertz is on a very nice little streak here. The last 2 splits have been gold, so that pod and Thieves Town are both gold splits for vertz.
Yeah, still behind PB pace.
Yes,
but a lot of that is simply due to the blue ball count. They have made up time in Dark World thus far, and vertz is on paper the slower runner of the two. Vertz PB is a low 131, whereas is a low 129. So vertz currently in the lead, having a very nice run, especially a nice Dark World so far. But still plenty of game left.
Yeah, I think it's only about a minute or so, 50 seconds, I think, separating the 2 runners at the end of Thieves Town, and all of the time save, as they say, is in Dark World, especially GT. There's a world of difference in the way a 130x runner and a 120x runner will be running the late game. So I mean, if vertz keeps this up, he's got a solid chance at taking this, but that fence dash.
Yeah,
that might be a run killer.
I hate to break it to any vertz fans, but the run is over. Vertz missed fence dash. It's doomed. Everything is pointless. I kid, of course. Vertz now on to the woods portion of Skullwoods. Has yet to enter the dungeon proper. The kind of frustrating thing about the Skullwoods segment is, hey, we're fence dash, no problem. The kind of frustrating thing about the Skullwoods segment is that so much of it takes place on what is technically the overworld, which means if, God forbid, you do take a death in Skullwoods, that death is going to require you to restart not anywhere near the dungeon. Vert's right now having a fair amount of trouble with this statue room. Not an uncommon thing to see, especially with more inexperienced runners. Not saying the Vertz is, but one of the things that people have a lot of trouble with, especially early on, is that statue room. It can be a real pain in the neck. And it looks like Vert's actually lost a fair amount of health as a result of the troubles there. Will need to be very cognizant of his heart count going forward. Oh, looks like maybe trying to farm a fairy or at least a heart drop. No such luck, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, a fairy there would be very nice. As it is, I think in a race setting, I might opt to take a Death Warp here. Vertz is going to go for it, though.
Over the pit smartly. The optimal strat there for getting out of that last room is to just simply fall into the pit. There we go. Vertz got his
What a gamer.
Anyway, the optimal strat is what you saw Wera just do, is simply to fall into the pit. It costs you a heart, but it is faster than bonking over that wall, or bonking into the wall and jumping over the pit. Or alternatively, some people will actually menu to the mirror and mirror out, but that's much slower.
Bonking and mirror are actually roughly the same. From the last time I was, it's pretty comparable. If you're menuing well, but yeah, both are, I want to say, almost 2 seconds slower than just falling in the pit.
Vert's going with my favorite strat there, Joe Mumway.
Yeah, that is a fantastic strat.
Yeah, I love
Wera
it.
as well. Much easier than the optimal strat. Loses maybe 10 frames, I want to say. 10, 15.
Yeah, there's not a big difference time-wise between the Joe strat and the optimal strat. Oh, no! Wera managed to dash into a spike there. Messed up his rhythm a little bit, but no big deal. Vertz, really interesting strat here on the moth fight. The moth fight can be very... Oh, he's going to want to be careful. Oh, okay. Oh, that had my heart rate up. The moth fight can be really, really difficult because there's a lot of RNG in Mothula's movement. All you need to do is hit Moth 4 times. That's it. All you have to do is hit him 4 times. But the way the game is programmed, and I think this might be a Japanese version only thing, if you hit the Moth into the spikes that line the room, it cancels out the damage that you've just done. So it doesn't count as a hit if you knock him into one of those spikes. So Vertz opting to just hold his sword out and poke the Moth over and over again, which does not cause nearly as much recoil as a proper sword slash does. Wera had a much better Moth fight, and I think probably a better dungeon in general. Oh yeah, significantly better dungeon. So runners almost even now. Looks like hang on.
We're at 2 seconds behind on split time.
Right now. We got a race. Oh. No. And Wera is now going to be in the lead because Vertz missed the bird pickup there, which does happen, but is a pain in the neck. So we're coming up on the Ice Palace dungeon. This is where a lot of runs die. Now, presumably neither of these runs will die because we're in a race setting, but folks doing casual runs or PB attempts, this kills a lot of them. Reason being, as you move your way through the Ice Palace, there is limited opportunity to refill your magic bar. And you have to have, it is a mandatory thing, a full magic bar when you get to the dungeon boss. So if, by some poor luck, you die to the boss or even shortly before the boss, and you don't have a full magic bar, you're kind of in a lot of trouble. You'll have to farm magic before you can continue on. And a lot of people will actually opt to skip the dungeon entirely and go on to the next one, and then come back and beat Ice Palace later. So now that I've said that, hopefully I didn't curse anyone. Usually it's fine, but it is kind of a scary dungeon for that reason.
Wera nearly had one of the... It's absolutely catastrophic and unfixable for a new runner.
Almost soft locked, yeah.
There is a way around it, but it costs arrows and bombs, and there is no guarantee that any given runner even knows how to use it. But luckily, it did not push too far up on that dash, where it was trying to bonk the wall there to set up a free quick warp without costing any time while we were waiting for the catfish animation, and was too high and started dashing along the side, or along the top, which if you manage to go too far, you'll get placed back on the last place you were, quote-unquote, on land, which you can't move from.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
To answer TrackPick's question, the reason that runners do a wall bonk there, it sets you up perfectly. You will land on the correct vertical pixel for a quick warp when you pick up the medallion. So that is one of those quote-unquote free quick warps, assuming that you don't soft lock your game. And Wera having just a tiny bit of trouble clearing that last room, and as a result, our runners are now virtually tied. Horizontal, vertical, same thing. Hot dog bun, hamburger bun, whatever. So both runners, all right, both runners going with the same strat here for this bomb placement. Dropping 2 bombs, but it did not work out for Vertz. Dropping 2 bombs in this room makes it so that you do not have to hit a switch a couple screens from now. But Vertz had a little bit of trouble with it. That's going to cost a fair amount of time. And
the backup I always use, it costs a menu, is it costs a menu but saves a bomb, is if you stand in the right spot and throw the boomerang down left, you can... Vert's having to stop and think a minute if the switch was where he wanted it, I think.
I noticed that as well. And here we have Ice Palace bomb jump. Wera got through it no problem. Vertz also no problem. Ice Palace bomb jump, another one of the more difficult skips or glitches in the game, requires I think you have leeway of 3 pixels in terms of where you place Link, but it allows you to jump over a space.
The question of how many valid spots there are is a complicated one.
That's right. Put it this way: you have to be really, really, really good at putting Link exactly where you want him. How about that?
Yes.
But it essentially lets you skip, I think, a couple whole rooms of the dungeon.
You get to skip.
You're getting around some switch hitting.
Not only a couple rooms, but revisiting a couple as well. It's probably the single biggest time save in the run.
That may
except
be true.
Maybe Silverless. I don't know. Both are on the order of a minute, I think. 3 minutes.
All right, we're a really nice cold stare fight. Actually, really
very nice
fight. It's sometimes really tough to keep cold stare backed into the top right corner like that. Wera nailed it. Really, really nicely done. We'll see how Vertz fares. Yeah.
Going for the same strat, but misses it
pretty easily. And Vertz is going to want to be careful here. This is what I had mentioned. Okay, cool. Got out of it, no problem. That's what I had mentioned. A cold stare death is devastating because both runners currently empty on magic and had to use all 8 of their fire rod shots, which is the entire magic bar, just to break the ice shell around cold stare. So fortunately, no tragedy has befallen either runner as a result of that fight. But Wera definitely expanding their lead a little bit with that excellent cold stare fight.
Yeah, and that as far as a puff party goes, Vertz had about as good a one as you could expect. I think that was a very quick cleanup for not getting a single one of the puffs with the quick kill attempt.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a clean fight, wasn't the fight he wanted, but he made more out of it than a lot of runners have on attempts that start out like that. So props all the same.
So Wera's doing his shopping now. I will see. We'll see. Yep, looks like Vertz is as well. So that's always nice when the runners both do their shopping in the exact same place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we might still see divergence.
Say what? We
may yet see divergence. I know it's a pretty popular route to get Ether in the Swamp Split and Ice Rod in TR. Wera is getting both now, which is also very popular. These are, differences that will inevitably fall within range of execution rather than absolute time saves.
Yeah. We'll see if Vertz also gets Ice Rod here or not. If Vertz does not get the Ice Rod right now, then the timing is and it looks like Vertz is not going to get the Ice Rod. Okay, mm-hmm. So for the next little while, it's going to appear that Vertz is ahead because Vertz has not picked up the Ice Rod yet. That will all reconverge in a little while, probably after this split. Probably after this split. And then we'll kind of be back on track. But it's going to appear for the time being that Vertz has the lead. Bear in mind that that's not entirely accurate.
Yeah. Ice Rod is about a 38-second time investment. So it's a little less than that Vertz is actually behind. He's about a screen behind Wera, or a screen ahead of Wera, minus those 38 seconds.
Nice. Wera getting the really, really fast exit out of that room after pulling the lever. That's actually really tough to do, is starting your dash before the animation begins flooding the room. But it is the quickest escape from that room. Tough to do.
Now, with both runners in Swamp Palace now, this is, as we mentioned before, that we deviate from the intended dungeon order. This is dungeon number 2 in the vanilla game, and as such, it's the Tempered Sword does more damage than you need for anything here. It's a breeze to get through in terms of offensive firepower. Mm-hmm. However, there are a lot of enemies here, and they move rather unpredictably. Mm-hmm. None of them do much damage, as it's an early game dungeon. But again, there are a lot of them, and you can get... This is a death by 1,000 cuts kind of dungeon.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it.
If things go wrong...
I always tell folks it's very rare to see deaths in Swamp Palace. It is very common to see a lot of rage in Swamp Palace, as a result of getting nickel and dimed here and there. Lots of time loss as a result of just bad luck or non-optimal movement, resulting in the loss of 1 or 2 hearts as you go through.
Yeah, because there's a number of rooms where beams are very helpful, a number of rooms where, if you... there aren't too many places where you'd, try for a damage boost here, but, if you can't afford it, you're going to have to play a lot safer, that kind of thing. Vertz is actually doing a really good job of not taking any damage.
Yeah, vertz deep into the dungeon, still with beams, which is really nice.
Ooh, and we're getting some of the most unfortunate RNG in the dungeon. Most people will just YOLO that dash because the berry 99 times out of 100 isn't going to actually get in your way.
Yeah. Well, Wera there opting to go with a hammer dash through that one pot. Vertz did not. So I'm officially rooting for Wera because I am a big fan of any and all unnecessary hammer dashes.
I'm a big fan of any and all unnecessary item dashes, period. And I didn't see either runner go for the mirror dash in the dam to delete the block. And so, I don't know. My heart's just not in it anymore.
Yeah. All right. So both runners now have the hook shot, which is one of the very best items in the game. They will use it frequently because essentially, if you can hook to cover ground, you use the hook shot to grab onto a pot or a block or anything that is in the path of where you need to go. That is the fastest way to get there. So you'll see folks make liberal use of the hook shot as they move around the game from here on out. Including, well, I guess this isn't so much a movement thing, but coming up, the boss of this dungeon, Argus, there is one of the bigger equalization things, technical term, of the run is whether or not you can get a 0 cycle Argus fight. By that I mean using the hookshot in combination with essentially like frame perfect sword slashes or sword pokes. You can kill Argus very quickly and more quickly than is really intended. So we're going to see vertz go for that now. He might already have lost it. Yeah, it doesn't even look like he's going to bother going for the 0 cycle Argus.
Wera isn't going to try. Yeah, vertz
bother trying.
Vertz tried. So how you do it is you start with a hook dash, and then you need to sort of move and hook the correct puffs. And there's really no other way to describe it because it's not free. Wera getting a faster phase 2 than vertz missing the fire rod quick kill.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a pretty quick fight.
Yeah, not a bad Argus fight for either runner, but vertz, like Vortex just mentioned, went for the 0 cycle, quickly realized to his credit that it probably wasn't going to happen, and then opted for just a more traditional Argus fight. Wera did not even bother, and I think probably because they didn't even really bother. That fight went a little bit more according to their plan. So a little bit cleaner fight for Wera, definitely. So again, the runners appear to be very, very, very close together, but that's about to change, presumably here in this next split, maybe after. All
right, yeah. My guess is that if you're getting ether in Swamp Split, you're probably going to go straight from Swamp to Mire.
Yeah.
Not risk the ice rod beforehand.
So yeah, we likely have
one more split.
One more dungeon to go, where it will again appear that these runners are basically in the same place before. Oh goodness, I don't even remember who doesn't have the ice rod. Vertz
does not have the ice rod yet.
Vertz will go and get the ice rod, and there will be a 35 to 40 second difference after that. So Mire, similarly, not terribly common to see deaths in this dungeon, but you do
prior to the boss. That's true.
You do sometimes see a lot of difference in time because of a couple of things. One of them that you just saw was just the second room of the dungeon itself. There's a very, very fast strat, there's a kind of fast strat, and then there's a not at all fast strat. You have to clear that room before you can go on. But there's Wizzy Robes who appear and disappear and reappear. And if you can't kill them all before they disappear the first time, it really wastes a lot of time waiting on them to come back. And it looks like Vertz had to do that. So that's kind of a pain. The other big thing here is a glitch that we call Spooky, that allows you to... I mean, if you want to explain it, feel free. I probably don't understand it technically.
Okay,
well,
so
yeah, go ahead.
When you flute to the mire area, there is a variable that is set. Well, I guess it's a variable that's used by the bird and to change its altitude. And where it leaves the screen is where that altitude variable is until something changes it. Coincidentally, that variable is also used by the fire rod splash damage. And so if you walk under that big black rock to get into the dark world here, the bird will exit at a point that puts that variable at a very convenient location for using the fire rod to hit some crystal switches in the basement very conveniently. The big catch to Spooky is that the Cane of Samaria, which whereas picking up here, if you lay a block with it, it'll actually zero that variable, or it'll reset that variable. So you have to make sure that you kick up some boot dust for some reason that is more complicated than necessary to explain here, to make sure that the cane doesn't actually reset that, to keep it safe. So that is the major failure point of Spooky, is if you mess up your movement down in this room where Wera is and fail to kick up boot dust, which Wera does not.
Yeah, so that was the first of 3 opportunities that you have to exploit that, and it looks
Vertz, well. I'm not sure. I will have to see.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, if you fail the first one, then numbers 2 and 3 are lost. It looks like okay. So Wera getting the first and second one, no problem. Vertz, it looks like something went wrong. Had to do the second one the normal way, and because Wera had to use an extra fire rod shot, didn't have enough magic. Okay, there we go. Didn't have enough magic for the third Spooky glitch, so had to do the third one the traditional way, but that's not a huge time loss. You may have noticed Wera just healed themselves thanks to the mushroom that they picked up earlier. The way that works, because they did not ever bother visiting the witch to turn their mushroom into powder, the way that works is actually a glitch. If you have used all of your magic, as Wera had done, and then you try and use, I think it has to be the Cane of Samaria, it'll tell you that you don't have enough magic to use the Cane of Samaria, which is true. If while that dialog box is still open, you open your menu and move your menu to the mushroom, it will use powder on whatever's in front of you. In this case, that happened to be an anti-fairy, which turned into a fairy and healed Wera. It's a wicked cool glitch, and is a great sort of last safety to drop, because picking up the mushroom itself costs you virtually no time. You do it in Lost Woods, you walk right past it. It's 1 or 2 seconds to grab. And opting not to visit the witch to turn it into actual powder doesn't cost you any time at all, because all you have to do is not visit the witch. But then if you ever need powder, you have it there at your disposal. So it's a really, really great safety to hold on to until until you're really, really comfortable never needing any healing. So nice that we got to see it come in handy for Wera.
Yeah, Wera was in pretty good shape health-wise, to be perfectly honest, going into Vidi. Might have realized that he's ahead. If you're not looking at the stream, you might not have noticed that Vertz didn't pick up Ice Rod, but if he did, he's Fake Powder really doesn't lose that much time. It can feel like it's a couple menus, a text box. It feels longer than it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the safety going into Vidi with full health versus the 7-8 hearts that you would normally have is often worth it, especially in a race setting.
So Vertz getting Ice Rod right now, which we had mentioned, this is going to be the point of re-divergence. Is that a term? We are now back to having an accurate idea of Wera's lead. One other thing of note is that Vertz wasted a bomb there on his way to pick up the Ice Rod. Will need to get a bomb at some point in the near future, because is completely out right now and needs a couple still for the rest of the run. I think maybe just one. But there is
you need 2 bombs, but you get a second for free at the time you have to use the first.
That's
so
true.
It's Vertz will probably pick up a bomb right in the entrance of Turtle Rock, if I had to guess. Maybe as late as the Peg Maze at the end.
Yeah, that's a smart place to pick it up. Nice crystal roller room for Wera. That room is way harder than it looks, actually. Oh, and kind of a smart heart and magic pickup there as well, actually.
Yeah, Wera missed
the magic.
Did not get the fairy, or did not save the fairy drop for Turtle Rock. Okay, I couldn't remember if the magic drop had already been used on the or if the Helma by Hammer Yump had dropped the magic, because that would be an excellent reason to pick up that magic. If you had missed the fairy skip and then failed that.
And Vortex, you were correct. Vertz did opt to pick up the bomb there in the entrance of Turtle Rock, which is smart. That's a good place to do it. And now on to the crystal roller room, which we just saw Wera do just a bit ago. Wera opting to fire rod that pokey, which is not something you see terribly often. That's sort of a safe strat there, as opposed to using a sword spin to kill the pokey.
Yeah, Wera used...
But because Wera picked up a full magic refill after the crystal roller room, should be in really good shape when it comes to magic. So they can get away with that.
I'm not sure if Wera always does this. They used Fire Rod for hitting the Chain Chomp switch, killing the first pokey. It might be because they know that fairy drop isn't coming, and Fire Rod is the safest way to kill the pokies, because
Wera informing us in chat that yes, they do in fact always do that.
Okay, yeah, it loses very little time if everything goes right with the more optimal strat, and
going for the
gains a significant amount of time if not everything goes right. So it's a pretty good strat.
That's something you see in randos actually quite a bit, is the bonk over the roller in that last room.
Yeah, it's a pretty good, if you don't do the 2 Samaria block strat to and get the squeeze there, or set up invulnerability on the pegs.
Oh.
Ooh, and
Wera just walking right off the edge there. Coming up on laser skip, which gives me fits. But great laser skip. Easy every time. Vert's having a little bit of fun there in the double pokies room. That second pokey was not being cooperative.
Both runners actually ended up getting the 8 bomb drop. So they're set on bombs for the rest of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And then some. In fact, I think it'll become a little too inconvenient to try to run out of bombs for better menuing. Vert's also using the bonk strat.
And I could be wrong here. The bomb optimization menu thing is really only something that's a big benefit to folks if they plan on hovering past the second Moldorm fight. That
is definitely its primary benefit. But
and particularly if you don't plan on using the hook shot in the Ganon fight. And I expect that both of these runners will probably at least have hookshot menued against Ganon, because going hookshot-less in the Ganon fight is pretty high level stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Wera finishing up Trinex, no problem whatsoever. Vert's making his way to the fight soon.
Vert's picking up the heart. Maybe it's something he does every time, but he was at 8 hearts before. Trinex does 4 hearts with the main heads, which is a lot of damage. This just means he can't anymore. Take 2 hits from the heads and survive.
Oh boy. Vert's is going to want to be careful. Oh, Vert's, you're making me nervous. Yeah, it was a smart safety heart to pick up. If you're, as Vortex was just saying, if you're at a multiple of 4 hearts, picking that heart up. No!
Ooh!
Oh, that's not a good death.
That's a very punishing death.
So Vert's now will need to make his way back through the majority of the dungeon. Oh man, that's a bummer. You will see some runners actually in the laser skip room. There is a bombable door that will take you to the overworld at the bottom of that room. And some runners, especially early on, will go ahead and bomb that door and walk out, so that in the event of exactly what just happened, if you take a death to Trinex, you restart from that door instead of from the dungeon entrance proper. But Vert's obviously did not do that, which is unsurprising.
Yeah, and it's Trinex pretty quickly becomes one of the more consistent boss fights when you're speedrunning this game. It's one of the ones that becomes not very scary pretty quickly. You get it right the majority of the time, and when you don't, though, when it goes bad, it goes really bad.
And yes, to answer Doomtap's question, which has already been answered, Wera is favored in this race. And at this point, we're late enough in the run. At this point, barring something catastrophic for Wera, which is on the table, there's a lot that can go wrong. But barring something catastrophic, Wera should hold on to this race.
Yeah, I think the catastrophic things for Wera are less likely with that mushroom. He used it in one of the popular and very high quality places to use it, which is the end of Misery Mire. The other is at the top of Ganon's tower. So I don't think, he's much less likely to be at very low hearts and take a Moldorm 2 or Aga 2 death comparatively than vertz. I don't think it's likely that either runner does, but that safety is...
Yeah, the end of Mire right before the Vitreous fight, it is almost like it's designed to use fake powder there.
Yeah, it works itself in very nicely with level effort.
The way that the spooky glitch is set up, you are going to be out of magic when you get to that point. Just the way the way the dungeon is routed, you will be out of magic anyway. And in order to use fake powder, you have to be out of magic. And the Vitreous fight, the boss fight for Mire, requires that you take, oh goodness, at least is it 4 or 5 hearts of damage, just as a result of doing the fight. It's impossible to do that fight without taking damage. Well, it's not, but it's impossible to do it quickly.
It's slow. It's slow if you don't take any damage.
So it's a perfect place to use fake powder if you're gonna have it. Which I imagine is why Wera did, despite being in pretty good shape. I would guess that Wera probably fake powders every single time there, because why not? All right, Wera currently making their way through the Ganon Tower gauntlet, which is just 5 consecutive rooms that are annoying. And that was the 5th one, so no real problems making their way through the gauntlet. Now on to the second Landmo fight. The conceit of Ganon's Tower is that you fight all of the Light World bosses again. Already dispatched Armos, and that was Landmo, and obviously Moldorm is coming up later. But that's part of what makes the Ganon's Tower dungeon so difficult, is that there's 4 mini boss fights throughout it, which is just annoying.
Yeah, and thankfully, Nintendo did not make the enemies here, for the most part, do as much damage as some of the late game dungeon enemies. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the enemies that are here do ignore the mail upgrades that you might have had. And vertz missed his one allowable missed lamp in this room without the room going badly, Wera did.
Yeah, I saw that, and I wondered, because I could have sworn that they used an extra fire rod shot on the Landmo fight as well. So when I saw them miss that lamp, I kind of wondered to myself whether they might have been in trouble, but managed to pull it out, no problem.
And we saw where I use 8 fire rod shots in a room that, really should only need 4, and that wasn't a mistake. That is setting up fake powder again. I wouldn't have bothered picking up that extra fairy for 1 heart. I hate having beans for the rest of the game, actually, but better safe than sorry, and all that.
So here's the Moldorm refight. Fortunately, Moldorm, easier to kill the second time around, only takes 2 hits. So no problem there for Wera. This is where we had spoken a little bit about menu optimization with bomb count. Previously, what you'll see some runners do, particularly at a very high level, is drop 1 bomb before they use the very last bomb that you need to use in the whole run, which is just to bomb open a wall. And the reason they will drop a bomb before using the last one is that it will automatically make it'll switch your selected item to the fire rod, which is the next item that you have to use. And that's only going to be beneficial if you plan on hovering past the second Moldorm fight, because if you don't hover, you're going to have the hook shot to get across that pit. And if you plan on foregoing the hook shot for the Ganon fight, which just makes the Ganon fight a little bit more difficult. But Wera not bothering with that strat. Vertz currently getting through the Mimics room. Both Mimics rooms surprisingly difficult. watching people do it quickly, it does not look hard, but it is. It's very, very hard. All right, so Wera now dropping into the Ganon fight. And Ganon is certainly a formidable last boss to this run. More often than not, well, no, never mind. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to curse anybody. It's a tough fight.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, well, actually, the entire reason we don't pick up the gold sword and silver arrows is there is a glitch in the Japan. I believe that Silverless is only Japanese 1.0, where if you time your attacks correctly, Ganon is vulnerable during a brief period of time before he starts to warp. Mm-hmm. And it takes 12 spins with the tempered sword to finish this phase 4 here, where you'd normally be hitting him with the silver arrows. And with good timing, you can get 3 hits per light of the torch.
Yeah, killing Ganon with the gold sword and silver arrows is faster than killing him with the tempered sword. But the time you lose getting the gold sword and silver arrows, it's a net loss. So the optimal way to kill Ganon is with the tempered sword here. It is theoretically possible to kill Ganon with the fighter sword, which is I'm sorry, not the fighter sword, the master sword.
Yes.
But it is so slow that it is worth getting the tempered sword from the dwarfs earlier. I think it takes. Does it take 64 spins? Regardless,
54 total.
Finishing their run off at 130.55 or 56, and now just waiting on Vertz to finish up GT.
I think Vertz can lamp here. I think he can do. Oh no, he's gonna have to grab the magic. He routed his magic so that he thought he could skip it, but I don't think. Unless, did he get it?
So maybe he's Vertz right now, probably going over his options in his head. Oh no. Vertz's run might be over. He did.
I mean, yeah.
So this. So was there I wasn't watching closely enough, and to be honest, I don't know the technical aspects of it well enough. Was there a despawn, or are we okay?
I don't think so. I think he thought he had enough magic, and there wasn't.
Okay.
So
we'll see if Vertz opts to finish out the run. He can if he'd like to. He may be done though. His call ultimately. But yeah, for anyone who wasn't watching, Vertz forgot to grab a magic refill in the room that he's standing in right now, and as a result did not have enough magic to get through this room here, and so had to fall down and pick up that magic, which was quite costly in terms of time. And then there was some confusion amongst us over whether or not Vertz had possibly caused an enemy despawn, which is really uncommon but can happen in this dungeon, where again, I don't know the technical aspect of it well enough to tell you how or why it happens, but
if you go up the stairs into Torches 2 on the same frame that the first torch from Torches 1 goes out and the door closes again, you will despawn none of the rest of the enemies in the tower will spawn, and that includes Moldorm 2 and most importantly Aga 2.
Right. So you could
it's
still theoretically hover past Moldorm too, because Moldorm won't be there to kill, which then means that this chest here won't spawn. So you would have to hover past this pit. But the real problem is Aga 2 will not be in the room when you enter to fight Aga 2, which means you can't kill Aga 2, which means you can't get to Ganon. So it is a game-ending glitch if it does happen. Very, very uncommon, and not the case here. But there was a little bit of confusion over maybe it had happened. We weren't sure. But anyway, as it is, vertz onto Aga 2 now. Aga 2, just like Aga 1, all you have to do is hit him 6 times with energy balls. But the difference, obviously, you're seeing here, is that Aga 2 splits himself into 3 copies. 2 of them are totally fake. You can't do any damage to them. Ignore them completely. But the energy balls they shoot at you are very, very real. So you can do the entire fight in just 2 cycles with the right RNG and really, really good positioning and timing of your slashes. Vertz there got 3 cycles, which is pretty common. And not a big time loss, but a 2-cycle Aga 2 is a really nice thing to get if you can manage it. So on to the Ganon fight now. And Ganon, we didn't really talk about this much with Wera, but Ganon is essentially broken up into 4 phases. The first 2 phases, you want to try and do quickly to avoid Ganon warping around the room. And basically you just have to hit him with your sword, I think 12 times. The third phase involves a lot of warping around the room, and that's just completely RNG. There's a 50-50 chance every time Ganon lands in a spot over whether he will stay there and let you hit him with your sword or warp. And theoretically, because it's a 50-50 chance every time, theoretically, he could warp forever and you could never ever finish the run. That's never happened and will never happen. But there's a universe where it could. And in this third phase, which Vertz is finishing up right now, all you have to do is hit Ganon 4 times. And then you move on to the last phase, which is just the 12 sword spins, which we talked about earlier, is possible because of a glitch in the Japanese version of the game. And is why we don't need to pick up the gold sword and silver arrows. Because that's the designed way to kill Ganon, is by shooting him with 4 silver arrows. But we don't need to do that. So just a matter of time now for Vertz. This is a difficult fight for a couple of reasons, but the really scary thing here is Ganon A does a lot of damage. So Vertz, who only has 1 heart right now, does need to be careful. Touching Ganon does a number of hearts of damage, and getting hit by any of the fire bats here does a number of hearts of damage. So you want to be careful there. Additionally, though, the pit surrounding this platform on which they're fighting is very fall-offable. So don't do that, or else you have to start the entire fight over again. All right, there we go. Vertz finishing it up, walking through the doorway here, and that'll be it for Vertz. So GG to both runners.
Yeah.
And time. Looks like 1:37:25 for Vertz.
I don't think that's an official finish time because I don't think he took.
That's true. I do think Vertz.
I'm not sure he unforfeited, and I'm not sure if he would if he waited in that room for a couple minutes. But yeah, it was a nice finish anyway.
Yeah, always nice to see folks finish out runs, even if you've already lost it, or if you're not going to have a great time, or if something's gone catastrophically wrong. It's fun for people to watch runs, so it's nice to get to watch runs, no matter how they're going. Excellent. Wera, how'd you feel?
I'm feeling great because I won, but kind of disappointed on my light world. It was completely bad. Like, everything was bad in light world. Oh my god.
Let's see, I'm trying to think. because Vertz had a lead on you for a while in Dark World. The beginning of Vertz's Dark World started out really strong. I think you got back out in front.
It was in the Skullwood split, I believe.
Yeah.
Vertz had a pretty rough time of the Mummy Room and all that. Yeah, I mean, you kept plugging away and you built onto your lead only by seconds at a time, really, until the Trinex death, which is the big decider, I think, in this one.
Yeah, that was the big decider. Yeah, I agree. What happened on my light world was I fell in Hera once before the Moldorm fight, and then Moldorm threw me off in the middle hole, so it was even worse. I also got like 7 or 8 cycle landmo.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. It was a rough landmo fight.
Yeah, really, really bad.
I'm sure that's not normal for you, but is landmo a part of the game that you're normally very confident in, or is landmo for you like he is for the rest of us?
Landmo is landmo for me, like for the rest of you. Yeah, I normally get it on like 4, maybe even 5 cycles if I'm playing bad, but today I just played really, really bad.
Yeah, the Light World was fun to watch. I don't know if you had the race ups so that you could kind of watch Vertz's progress. The Hera split, especially because you had such a difficult Landmo fight. Vertz went into Hera with a decent lead, but then Vertz had a pretty rough beginning to Death Mountain, and opted to get healed by the old man in his cave. And that actually gave you a lead going into the Hera dungeon proper. But then, the Moldorm fall was not ideal, but also happens a surprisingly high percentage of the time. It feels like when people are in race settings, or just I don't know, maybe it's a pressure thing. I'm not sure. What do you think? I mean, was it just bad luck? Was it did you play it poorly? How did you feel about it?
I think it was bad luck. I don't think I played it any different from when I'm doing attempts myself. So I think it was bad luck. Even worse since he threw me off the middle. So yeah.
Yeah, the middle pit is always a pain.
Yeah. And we're also joined by we're joined by Vertz as well. So I don't want to go too long before saying GG's to Vertz.
And GG's were well played.
Thank you. GG's to you too.
Yeah, Vertz, you had a really strong start to your Dark World. I think we saw, were those real golds there? I think both, was it Palace of Darkness and Thieves Town both?
Yeah, let me check, actually. So yeah, Pod and Thieves Town were golds. I'm not sure by how much. It was nice to get some time save after the 5 blue balls I got on Aga 1.
Yeah, I kept waiting for Aga to be over, and then Aga kept not being over, and I felt so bad. But I mean, Wera, I think do you know how many blue balls you had?
Yeah, I got 4 blue balls.
4 blue balls. Okay, so it wasn't
pretty close.
It wasn't a huge differentiator in the race itself, but and then Vertz, tell me about, because I know you were ahead of Wera after Thieves Town, and then Skull Woods, something happened.
Yeah, that place happened. Yeah, so I went into the mummy room, which I had been practicing before we started, and was like, all right, I got this. It's fine. Went in there. It was not fine. Ended up having to get my boomerang out to freeze the mummies in there so I could even get to the big key. And then got enough damage that I had 1 heart going to the back, and then decided, I'm just going to see if I can get a fairy here.
Farming the fairy, I don't know what I would have done. I probably wouldn't have thought to farm a fairy. I would have been looking for, all right, where's the best place to take a death warp is probably.
I was like, I always get a fairy there when I don't need it. So I was like, maybe this is the time that I actually need it.
I think Fox pointed out in chat that it's only the top row that can drop a fairy for whatever reason, which, matched up with my purely anecdotal research, but
Vertz had very bad luck there, and I got 2 fairies right there. And I didn't need them.
One of them.
Nope.
And then, Vertz, did you in your? I think it was your moth fight. You just went with a poke strat. Do you always fight moth that way?
Usually, yeah. Usually going for pokes if moth is not super cooperative and I have some magic, I'll throw a fire rod shot there. But I try to go for pokes.
Because it was a difficult moth. He did not want to operate.
He was mean.
I thought he played it really, really well.
Thank you. I was scared. I was really close to dying.
Yeah. But yeah, any last thoughts from either one of you guys?
No,
I mean, it was a pretty good race.
Yeah, I agree. I looked at the restream after Swamp, and I was like, "Oh, we're very, very close."
Yeah.
And then I knew once I died on Trinex, a boss that I have not died on in a long time. I died and was like, "Well, all right, that's it. We're good. we'll just finish it out and see how it goes."
I was watching the restream all the time, and I pretty much saw the whole race.
Mm-hmm.
We were pretty much tied at the same all the time.
Yeah, I was sad. I was like, man, what a bummer. I ended up forfeiting in the race room mainly because when I'm on restream, I want to be respectful of the time of the restreamers. But there's no way to undo a forfeit when you're the last one, I guess.
Well, yeah, but I'm glad you had an opportunity to finish it out at least.
Yeah,
it's nice for everybody watching to be able to get to see the end of the run, even if it's not a run you're happy with.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thanks so much for both of you guys running. Congratulations to Wera.
Thank you.
And thanks Vortex for doing comms with me. I had fun.
Yeah, I did too. It was my pleasure. Looking forward to doing more as the tournament progresses. So
yeah, me too. All right, we bounce it back to ZSR reps, and we'll see you guys later.
Yeah, just to reiterate, thank you to our commentators. You guys did an amazing job and were consistent throughout, so thank you both for that. Thank you to our runners today for doing a wonderful job racing, even when things got a bit tough. And thank you everyone for watching. So, hope you guys enjoyed. There is another race at 10 p.m. ET, so tune in for that. It's Voxlisk versus Deot MB? I don't know. I should stop trying. Anyways, thank you everyone for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye!